Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. Again, saw the number one seed in each conference face off against their second round opponent in the Dallas Mavericks facing the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Boston Celtics, which is the game I want to go ahead and start with because these are two teams I haven't really talked about much throughout the early going of the playoffs. Cavs, of course, had that amazing series against the Magic, but just didn't have a lot of time to fit them into my overall video making schedule. And with the Celtics, I haven't felt a need to talk about them too much because they decimated the Miami Heat for the most part in the first round outside of that one game, which was just the Eric Spoelstra tax. He's always going to find a way to will his team to at least one victory, but Boston won that pretty convincingly, which is exactly what I expected. And this Celtics team, in my opinion, for the entire season has been the prohibitive favorite to win the Eastern Conference. As soon as we knew that the Bucks weren't exactly going to be the team we pictured coming into the season, I was anticipating that the Celtics were going to run away with the East. They ended up doing so in the regular season. And throughout this playoff run, I'm not expecting the Celtics to lose too much en route to an NBA Finals appearance. Don't get me wrong, there are some good teams, but between some injuries and the fact that the Celtics are just so good, I think they're going to go ahead and make their way there with not much resistance, although in this game, the Cavaliers definitely gave them some of that, giving the Celtics a massive loss, winning by 24 points, putting up 118, holding Boston out of all teams to just 94. Great showing from the Cavaliers, and a lot of it was Donovan Mitchell, 29 points, 7 boards, 8 assists, 52.6% shooting, had 5 threes. He has been amazing to begin these playoffs, both in the Orlando series and here, really showcasing why people consider him a big-time playoff riser. You had pretty good play from Evan Mobley as well, 21, 10, 5, answering a lot of questions people had about him after game one. Max Strus, 5 of 10 from the floor. Darius Garland wasn't anything insane, 14.7 rebounds, 4 assists, but pretty efficient, kind of took a back seat and just did some playmaking. 21 points from Karis LeVert, who's either the best player in the world or the worst, just depends on the night. And yeah, just overall, I thought they were great defensively. Isaac Okoro played some great defense on the Celtics wings, 5 of 6 shooting from him. Overall, great performance to go ahead and keep themselves even in this series heading back to Cleveland, which, if you're a Cavs fan, that's about all you can ask for. As a whole for the Celtics, it was a pretty rough team effort, just 4 points for Jrue Holiday, 2-7 shooting, 3 of 11 from Derek White for just 10 points, 11 for Al Horford, 19 for Jaylen Brown, which isn't terrible, but just 7 of 17 shooting. The team as a whole couldn't buy a 3-ball. They were 8 of 35 from the outside, and they really rely on the 3-point shot, so when it's not falling, things can get pretty difficult. That is one of the concerns people have with the Celtics team, and probably most disappointing of all was Jayson Tatum. Now, the numbers on the surface don't look terrible in this game, 25, 7, and 6. One of the better performances out of anybody on the team, and I don't think this was an awful game for Tatum by any means, but it continues a trend where Tatum has not really been the guy they need him to be so far in the playoffs, and that's been fine so far. I mean, the Celtics have played the Miami Heat, who are without Jimmy Butler, as well as Terry Rozier. That's easy. This Cavs team is a lot better, but I still think even if Tatum isn't quite his best, they can get by them even with the Kristaps Porzingis injury. But the later and later they get into the playoffs, the more they're going to need Jayson Tatum to figure this thing out, especially assuming they do make the NBA Finals. If you go up against the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Denver Nuggets, the Thunder, the Mavericks, any of those 4 teams left, Tatum cannot play the way he has so far in the playoffs because up to this point, he's been really disappointing. Through the Celtics' first 7 playoff games, he's putting up just 21.7 points per game, 10 boards, and 5.4 assists, while shooting a really rough 40.7% from the field and 26.8% from 3 in over 37 minutes per game. So it's not like he's not playing very much and the numbers are low for that reason. The numbers are low and the efficiency is down. And again, this is without Kristaps Porzingis playing the last few games of the run. So he's not even there, which allows Tatum to have more responsibility. It puts more on his plate, and he hasn't really produced. And again, it's been fine so far because you're playing Miami and Cleveland at the moment, but the further you get in, especially if you make it to the finals and play one of those ridiculous squads out west, that's not going to cut it. That isn't enough from the player who's expected to be the number one guy on a championship team, who many people, me included, have called a superstar. He has to be better. And this is part of the frustration with Jayson Tatum, because there are moments, whether it's in the regular season or playoffs, where he looks unbelievable, like he's firmly a top 6-7 guy in the league. We talk about last year against the Sixers, where he really struggled throughout most of game 6, but in the fourth quarter completely took over and willed Boston to a victory, kept their season alive, and then in game 7 dropped the most points that anybody has ever had in a game 7 ever. He was ridiculous and got them over the hump there. He has made the conference finals 4 times, and he's just 26 years old. He's made an NBA Finals as the best player on that team. Like, Tatum has accomplished some amazing things, incredible regular season performances as well, a number of other playoff moments. But then there are these moments and stretches like this where he's just really struggling. He's not looking like himself. There's wild inconsistency, stuff that you can't afford if you're going to be the best player on a championship team. A lot of people will point back to the 2022 finals when they talk about why they don't believe in Jayson Tatum. Because, yeah, the Celtics got there, but when he played in that series, he was really rough. One game that always comes to mind for me that was really a telling moment for him and the Celtics was Game 4, where they had a chance to go up 3-1 at home, a really tough deficit to come back from if you're Golden State. And Tatum went out there and shot just 8 of 23 from the floor, 23 points. He was 4 of 8 from 3, but also had 6 turnovers. Just not a performance you can afford in the NBA Finals. So there are moments like that where, again, you think, can this guy be the consistent best player on a championship team? And then there are moments like we talked about in last playoff run where it looks like a world beater, and you're like, of course this guy can be that level player. It's wild inconsistency from him that's very frustrating from someone who's trying to gauge how I feel about him and the Celtics as a whole. He's continuously had these extremely frustrating tendencies throughout his entire career up to this point. Like, one thing that comes to mind is his unwillingness a lot of times to attack the rim and instead settle for these really contested mid-range jumpers or go for these threes, these sidestep shots. Just a lot of times he'll have his defender beat, but then he'll take the ball back out and settle for a step back 3 because the shot clock is winding down, or just get a worse shot. I don't quite understand it. It feels kind of similar to stuff we've seen from Paul George at times, where he really likes these contested jumpers. And when they're falling, like, Tatum looks like a world beater, but when they're not, it makes the Celtics look very human. I just feel like he should be able to get better looks more consistently with the strength that he has, the length, just the skill, the footwork. Tatum's a really good player. I don't know why he settles for these really difficult shots instead of finding the best look possible. Like, I know he can get better looks than this, especially because he's being guarded a lot of possessions by Max Strus. That's a matchup he should easily be able to win, and he just hasn't really done so far. So I'm not super concerned about the Celtics right now. I'm not saying they're going to lose this series. I'm not saying it's a problem yet that Tatum is playing so poorly, although it's kind of concerning. If he flips the switch and again looks like the Tatum we've seen in the past at moments, then the Celtics will be perfectly fine. They've got so much supporting talent that they don't even need Tatum to play consistently like a superstar to get these massive wins. Like, you've still got Derek White, you have Jrue Holiday, you've got Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis will be coming back at some point. I think the Celtics will be fine, but when you do face that NBA Finals matchup, whoever comes out of the West, assuming they make it to that point like I think they're going to, they need Tatum to be a lot better. They need him to be the superstar that they pay him to be, the guy that they expect to be the best player on their championship team. And I do worry about his consistency. I think he can still be that guy, although this year, if they fall apart at some point and he still doesn't look like himself, I may start to question it just a little bit. And that's coming from a guy who a while ago was a big-time Jayson Tatum doubter. I've become a believer. I still am, but it's a little bit concerning the way he's been playing. Has to be better 100%. I'm not saying he's a fraud quite yet, like a lot of people are saying that. I think I saw one tweet, someone said that he's the LeBron James of Tobias Harris's. I'm not going that far, but so far his play has been very, very underwhelming. And he's really got to work on some of those bad habits and figure them out quick before they face a team that isn't going to mess around like a lot of the Eastern Conference teams will. And if somehow the Celtics don't at least make the finals, you can expect there's going to be a lot of question marks from basically everybody in the NBA world rising up surrounding Jayson Tatum. Moving on now for a few moments to Oklahoma City versus Dallas. The Mavericks went ahead and tied this one up 1-1, getting a 9-point win in Oklahoma City. A great all-around performance from the Mavericks. Mainly, Luka Doncic looked like himself for the most part. He was hobbling around still a little bit. He even fell on his face at one point, but it still didn't matter. Luka was incredible. 11 of 21 shooting from the floor for 29 points, 10 boards, 7 assists, 3 steals, 5 of 8 from downtown. Was setting up guys for incredible looks, and the Mavericks shot the hell out of the ball in this game. 7 of 11 shooting from PJ Washington for 29 points, 3 of 5 shooting from the outside for Josh Green, 2 of 4 from Tim Hardaway Jr. They shot 18 of 37, just under 50%. It's hard to beat a team when they're shooting that well. Luka was orchestrating everything with ease. He was incredible. Great statement win from the Mavericks. Even Tim Hardaway Jr. having 17 points, that's huge for them if they can get any type of consistent production from him, who's been really bad over the past few months, it feels like. That's a big boost. As for the Thunder, pretty inconsistent across the roster tonight. Really the only guy that was phenomenal across the board was Shai, 33 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. Maybe his best game of the playoffs so far. He was completely in control of things, but ultimately the Thunder didn't do enough as a team to make it work. Just 7 of 17 from Jalen Williams, one of his weaker games of the playoffs. Just 4 of 12 shooting from Chet Holmgren. He really struggled to put in some outside shots, 1 of 6 from deep. Josh Giddey, I don't know how much more he can play in this series, if I'm being honest. He played just 10 minutes, was a minus 20. And you can clearly see the Mavericks are targeting him on defense, got a lot of buckets on him in those minutes he was on the floor. He is not really a threat from the outside, not much of an offensive threat overall. I wouldn't be surprised if Giddey continues to play less and less minutes. I wouldn't even be surprised if they moved him to the bench out of the starting lineup. I don't know if they do it just because they've been doing it this way the whole season, but it may be an adjustment the Thunder have to make if they want to win this series because his minutes have just been abysmal so far against this team. You got some good moments from Cason Wallace and Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, Jay Will, but overall the Thunder have to be a lot sharper if they want to go ahead and bounce back and win this series. I think they will answer the challenge. I picked the Thunder to win in 6. I think this is one that is going at least 6, if not 7 games. This is only the beginning, and I'm really excited to see how they respond, as well as how the Mavericks try to keep this thing up. If they keep shooting the way they did, it's going to be basically impossible for the Thunder to win the series. With all that being said, those are my takeaways from these games. Let me know down below in the comments what your takeaways were. What do you think about Jayson Tatum and the Boston Celtics, as well as who do you have winning that Thunder versus Mavericks series? Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real One Safe back.